Welcome to Creature Kind Live Daily News. For those of you that don't know, my name is Ethan. Today we're going over a new species of carnivorous dinosaur as well as a certain ceratopsian and what's going on with the marsupial over in Australia. We're streaming on both Rumble, YouTube, and Kick. So let's head back to the Mesozoic era. Oh, okay. We'll start out with this first. So from Sci News. So Cretaceous period horned dinosaur had combat injuries. New research confirms the existence of intraspecific fighting in Triceratops horridus, a species of horned dinosaur that lived in North America some 69 million years ago. I think that might be pushing it for Triceratops horridus, even specifically when it comes to the time that it existed over in North America. Somewhere around 67 to 68 million years ago, it seems that this animal first evolved. 69 million years ago, you might have had the genus Triceratops existing, but not Triceratops itself. Even then, that's pushing it for the later extension date of Triceratops. And also, Triceratops is from Canada and Montana as well. So, let's see. When it comes to Triceratops, I guess let's bring up some other pictures of Triceratops. But I'm guessing that this is probably a puncture hole, maybe from another Triceratops or possibly a Tyrannosaur in this instance. Okay, so this could be, I mean, it is interesting. They mentioned Hortus. There are actually two different species of Triceratops, Triceratops hortus and Triceratops horsus. And Triceratops horsus, it seems, existed during the last 500,000 years of the dinosaur's reign. And I think like somewhere around a million years into Triceratops's hortus's evolution, it also evolved into Triceratops horsus, which this would represent a Triceratops horsus to a certain extent, a bit more than a hortus, really due to the slightly more narrow jaw structure and the lengthened nasal horn. Triceratops horridus has a very short and wide nasal horn, whereas when it comes to Triceratops horsus, it's much longer and a bit thinner towards the main stem of the nasal horn. When it comes to also the horns, they're slightly longer in Triceratops horsus, whereas Triceratops horridus, um, they tend to be slightly more robust, but also at a different position angle as well. This Triceratops seems a little more like certain 1990s depictions. Um, the frill is a bit off, especially when it comes to the overall circumference of it. So, just specifically, the overall like roundish sort of like circular shape. It should be covering a bit more of the neck and also a bit protruding towards the front, especially even when it comes to like the little horns around the frill.
I just thought he looked like he was growling at something. He got his teeth out.
Oh, I didn't even see that. That's definitely far off. Triceratops did not have front incisor teeth. The teeth would really have been focused towards like the back end molars, even though they would look very different from different species of herbivorous or certain omnivorous mammals, and more of like being quite serrated, but I'd say sharper than different species of hadrosaurs or duck-billed dinosaurs in the region that it coexisted with. This model, at least when it comes to the horns on top, they seem a bit too close together and probably a bit too straight towards like the front of its body. But if it were Triceratops porous, this is trying to represent, it could be um, not far off. Now, the nasal horn is a bit more like a Triceratops horridus. However, given the small size, at least it seems, of the animal, the lengthened, or at least the length of the nasal horn, probably represents Triceratops porous a bit more than horridus. Okay, well, let's
Wait,
go.
wait, these guys look. Happy.
Oh, yeah. This could possibly be Triceratops porsus. This is probably representing the animals over in Alberta, Canada. Triceratops porsus is not found in the United States. There have been somewhere between 24 to 36 partial skeletons discovered in late Cretaceous Alberta. So this is somewhere around 66.5 million years ago. And as well, there have been edmontosaurs or the other large hadrosaurs in the region that have been discovered. And when it comes to T Rex, if there have been any skeletons found in Alberta, Canada, they're extremely fragmentary. T Rex is usually coming in from different parts of Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota, possibly fragmentary remains coming in from Colorado. Yeah, when it comes to this specific skull structure of Triceratops, it's a bit, um, like it seems to have been shrunk somewhat.
I mean, his front horn.
Um, well, I was really pointing towards like the overall frill size and even the skull structure, just like towards like the upper maxilla, the bottom cranial area in general. So, yeah, it seems like in evolution, this specific Triceratops sort of just shrank for some reason. But they did add feathers, which it is very possible that Triceratops might have had feathers, considering we have found different types of holes in the massive array of skin we have discovered of Triceratops from Montana in the early 2000s, possibly indicating that it had porcupine quill like feathers. Not really used for warmth, probably to maybe attract mates during the breeding season, possibly ward off other Triceratops, possibly even spook T Rex
Wait,
in this
does he
instance.
have feathers or is that just stuff on him?
Yeah, these are feathers.
Huh,
They just add it in different
thought
parts
he
of the
was
body.
scratched.
Yeah, well, on the other one, it seems to be just towards like the back of the tail. Maybe that is it. Maybe he's just completely scarred. That's interesting. Um, I think it's just kind of an odd scar structure for Triceratops, considering you're not going to really have any dromaeosaurs attacking. Now, it certainly is possible if Dakota raptor is a valid genus that this animal might have occasionally been attacked by the raptor, but that would be extraordinarily dangerous for something only weighing maybe 900 pounds to take on that large of an animal. Considering Triceratops horridus being the largest species, was somewhere around 12 to 14 tons in some instances. So, Triceratops horridus was characterized by its large neck frill formed from extended pedial and squamosal skull bones. It has been suggested that this bony frill served as protection against injuries from other Triceratops during fights. Yeah, we do have evidence for Triceratops coming into contact with each other, like in terms of massive horn conflict, and as well a wide variety of Triceratops horridus skeletons with evidence that T Rex was attacking them as well, so having bite marks. In the new study, Dr. Ruggero Di Anastasio from the Annunzio University of Chieti Pescara and his colleagues from Italy examined the fossilized remains of Triceratops horridus known as Big John due to its large size. The specimen was discovered in 2014 in the Upper Cretaceous Hell Creek Formation in Montana, United States, from where numerous remains of ceratopsid dinosaurs have been recovered. That is true. There have been other species of dinosaurs that have been discovered in Montana, such as Torosaurus, which coexisted with Triceratops horridus, possibly Porosaurus or Triceratops porsus during the late Cretaceous.
Oh,
But
you
there have
said
been,
Triceratops horses.
yeah, I can come out that way, or like a seahorse. But there were other different species of ceratopsians, both belonging to the Centrosaur and Chasmosaur lineage that existed earlier on to the Cretaceous. Also, when it comes to Triceratops in general, there have been well over 200 different specimens that have been discovered. So the
Hold on.
paleontologists,
How many ceratopsians are there?
there are around 40 to 50 different species of ceratopsian that we have discovered.
But you said they found 200 over 200 species 200 individual triceratops.
Yes, specifically Triceratops horridus, not even Porsus. Porsus is not as common over in Alberta. Still shows up, and many we do obtain more Triceratops porsus than certain other species of dinosaurs. Paleontologists found a keyhole-shaped opening, a fenestra, in the right squamosal bone. The bone surface around the fenestra is irregular and features plaque-like deposits of bone, which could have resulted from inflammation, possibly from infection. Um, Okay, so they're calling that specific area a fenestra. I was wondering because it has that distinct anorbital fenestra hole between the eye socket and the nostril, and as well a bottom hole on the back of the bottom jaw called the mandibular fenestra. It's not really showing it in, well, that's a toy technically. They just made it into a drawing. Strange. Okay. Oh wait, we had it right here. Well, it's kind of hard to tell even on this skull as well. This would right here be the anorbital fenestra. And then the little hole, so right here is that specific large anorbital fenestra, and this is the nostril. But the mandibular fenestra would be located in this specific area, but it's barely noticeable. It might be right over here. And yes, and as you can see, Triceratops has a little bit of a bulge of bone sticking in front of its eyes. So it's practically blind when it comes to specifically right in front of the animal. Certain type of degrees, but just not hitting me what that would be at the moment. The bone surface. Okay. So the researchers analyzed samples taken from the larger margin of the fenestra, which reveal that the bone tissue around the fenestra is porous with lots of blood vessels compared to bone tissue further from the fenestra, suggesting that this was newly formed bone. The bone also showed signs of remodeling, as demonstrated by the presence of little pits known as house ship lacunae. Together, these features indicate that the fenestra was caused by a traumatic injury, but that the bone was healing at the time of Big John's death.
Was Little John around?
I am wondering. This sounds like possibly an older Triceratops.
I just
Uh,
thought he was in Sherwood Forest.
Forced?
Sherwood Forest? Robin Hood? Little John?
Oh, I guess I forgot. We're talking about the fox, right?
Well, the fox wasn't the fox Robin Hood?
Yeah. The injury was caused by the horn of another Triceratops and occurred at least 6 months before Big John's death. Okay. So this is okay. So we have an instance where two Triceratops were fighting each other. This is a bit unfortunate to see, at least in terms of the infection, but quite really exciting considering it's evidence of Triceratops fighting each other. Based on, or more evidence, based on these findings, the mechanisms underlying the healing process in dinosaurs appears to be similar to that in mammals. Oh, well, so we got a little something out of this. So it wasn't a T Rex incident. It was simply another Triceratops. And I guess, fortunately, a T Rex didn't feed on this individual, so he could become preserved. Though he might have been covered up in sediment, depending on where he died. I mean, animals like Triceratops lived in swamps, marshes. They would also inhabit different open woodlands. So it's a bit of a question as to how he was buried. Okay, well, this was really exciting to hear. Let's head forward into the Cenozoic era to another part of the world. TheConversation.com. We checked 2,000 museum specimens and discovered a tiny new ferocious Australian mammal. Who are you? Looks a little familiar. So, Australia is home to unusual mammals not found anywhere else. Consider the platypus, Tasmanian devil, or the red kangaroo. Technically, you have platypus. Oh wait, I was thinking of wombats further north from Australia. I mean, not wombats. The echidna. There's a few different species. I'd like to say that about the red kangaroo as well as certain other species of kangaroo, but they have been invading certain parts of Europe, and occasionally they make their like wanderabouts in different states as well. But did you know our understanding of this continent's incredible mammalian diversity? Okay. We have discovered a new species in one of Australia's cutest and fiercest mammal groups, Planigalius. And we also unearthed a second new Planigali species from a 100-year-old specimen held in a Swedish museum. So once again, at least this time though, it's not coming from a dinosaur, but at the same time, it's a bit unfortunate that it wasn't like out there in the wild. Hopefully, it still exists. However, but we found new species. In the past 5 years alone, there have been 20 new mammals added to Australia's mammal species list. So, how is it we're still discovering new species of mammals in the 21st century? It's also not just smaller mammals, even larger mammals too. We've discovered newer species. Like back in 2017 or 2018, we discovered new species of orangutan, and there was an incident where it seemed for a second that we found a new species of giraffe, like in the past 10 years, but that was slightly earlier, I believe, in like the early 2010s. So we came upon a distinct um, species of giraffe, I think, over in East Africa. So, but first, what is a planigale? So, planigales are the world's smallest marsupials. Well, when it comes to the whole family in general, um, you have it where these animals are actually part of the Dicyromorphia lineage or order of mammals and also specifically marsupials. So they're actually a bit more closely related to the thylacine or the extinct Tasmanian tiger. Let's actually bring up a thylacine. Thylacyne. Um, and as well, let's see the Tasmanian devil and other species of Platygalli. So they're also members of Dasyuridae, and I believe the thylacine is as well. Now, when it comes to
Wait, is this still around?
no, it went extinct in the 1930s. But when it comes to this specific group of marsupials, they first evolved somewhere around um, 25 million years ago, or pushing towards the end of the Oligocene, like a late Oligocene epoch. And when it comes to the planet Galleyes, I'm not entirely sure how long ago this specific lineage of marsupials evolved, but there's about 73 different species of marsupial that belong to Dasyuridae. The thylacine has been around since the early Pleistocene or the Ice Age, somewhere probably around 1.8 to 2 million years ago. So they have been, or they were, a successful species. So surviving the Ice Age. So they were around when the different species of large rhino-sized wombats were existing, like members of the Diprotodontomorpha lineage of marsupials. And as well, they competed, probably not to a major extent, but slightly, with the marsupial lion or the marsupial Thylacoleo, and
Is
even
this him?
coexisted with Megalania, the giant lizard. Yeah, I don't think this is a real thylacine, but it's supposed to represent one. Unless it's stuffed, then maybe it is.
They're kinda hard to find.
Like, there's not even drawings or
No, 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 it's
depictions,
not that. It's
because there might be ones where it depicts them like back in Ice Age Australia. Yeah, when it came to it was interesting. Somewhere around 3,500 years ago. Oh, okay, yeah. So this one from the 1930s. Um, but somewhere around 3,500 years ago, when like the last woolly mammoths were still existing in different small islands in the Arctic Circle. Um, actually, I think even slightly further south, but you had it where the thylacine shortly beforehand was basically ruling all of Australia. And then at about that time, for some reason, it ended up being specifically restricted to the island of Tasmania, which is south of the state of Victoria over in Australia. So, where was I getting in with that? Oh, it's just odd that specifically that animal ended up being marooned on that specific island. And this is also around the time that we see the dingo coming in from Papua New Guinea and beginning to take over Australia, which possibly derived from the Papua New Guinea singing dog. They are extremely closely related when it comes to the dingo and the Papua New Guinea singing dog. And no, the dingo is not a marsupial. It is a placental like gray wolves, bears, people, elephants. Whereas the thylacine, despite its overall morphology, is a species of marsupial. It just happened to evolve many placental like mutations. They also weren't very large either. There were some around 30 to 40 pounds or pushing about 15 kilograms.
Are they
Um,
part zebra?
no, it is interesting why that they evolved this specific tiger-like stripe to them. Or you could say zebra to an extent. I guess you could say somewhat they might more closely resemble a zebra stripes. There are certain, especially when you look at the overall color like pigment of the thylacine, which is similar to certain other carnivores today. It probably helped them camouflage with the brush and grasslands of different parts of Australia back in the earlier Holocene epoch, so extending from between like 11 to 12,000 years ago to well the 1930s, and then beforehand even to the Ice Age or the Pleistocene epoch. So it was likely just feeding on medium-sized to smaller species of marsupials and, probably different species of birds, but that was its primarily food or
Wait,
primary food. And yes, I believe
well,
it
that's I didn't realize there were 2 of them in the picture.
yeah, I think it was a male and a female that they had, unless they were 2 siblings. Might have to check that. So, with flattened heads, Platygallies can squeeze themselves into cracks and crevices to hide from predators and extreme weather conditions. They are tiny but fearsome predators that emerge at night to hunt for insects, spiders, and vertebrates such as small lizards and even young mammals. They generally live in varied habitats that overlay cracking clay soils in central and northern Australia. Because Platygallies are so small, with subtly varying shades of brown fur, they are very difficult to tell apart. They are also difficult to catch, weighing so little that conventional small metal box traps are often not effective. Yeah, we are talking about an animal that might only weigh, in some cases, depending on the species, somewhere around a few grams. So we have to dig holes called pitfall traps instead. Most species live in remote areas, so it has been difficult to understand their diversity until now. Yeah, did it even give us the specific species? So there he is. I think that's him. But no, they said they found it in a Swedish museum laboratory
Wait,
or
how do you pronounce that?
um, in one of the shelves. Planegali. So there are several reasons. Well, hold on a second. Is there anything else about this specific animal? So in 2017, here we go. Actually, something else. So to do this, we partnered with organizations that survey for mammals in remote Australia such as Australian Wildlife Conservancy, and poured over museum collections for extra genetic samples. This way, we gathered hundreds of genetic samples of Planigales, where and were finally able to work out if there were more species in this group. In 2017, a genetic study first identified a unique Planigale found in Kakadu National Park in the Northern Territory. These results were based on only 2 genetic samples from preserved specimens held in the museum and art gallery of the Northern Territory. We exhaustively checked more than 2,000 Planigale specimens held. Whoa! I mean, I guess that's not surprising due to the amount of species there are. Held in Australian museums and found a single specimen that matched the existing two. It was in the Queensland Museum collected during the 1970s. So these 3 Planigale specimens, 2 males and 1 female, are genetically distinct from all other Planigale species and have their own unique appearance. They are large, well-furred Platygalli with dark, grizzled fur and a very long tail, longer than other Platygalli species. Yeah, so dark grizzled tends to mean like a darker grayish, not exactly black, but sort of a look. So, and they were found in an unusual location on top of a rocky plateau.
Okay, wait, I forgot. What are these things?
They're small marsupials
Okay.
or diaceurids. There's another subfamily that they belong to that really only consists of the platygallis, and it doesn't contain like the Tasmanian devil, the thylacine, a few other branches of marsupial. This does not contain the kangaroos, the koalas, the wombats. Those, well, specifically the wombats belong to Diprotodontidae, and the kangaroos belong to um, trying to remember real quick. Macropodidae. About to say macroninians. That's a sauropod. Okay, so where were we? Most other species of platygallis tend to live in swampy habitats or areas with heavy clay soils. These factors confirmed we were dealing with a new species. We described it as the Arnhem Plateau Platygalli petrophylla, meaning rock lover. Since it is only known from three specimens, we urgently need to do more work to determine whether it is rare or under threat of extinction. Isn't that the same thing? Okay. All right. So, and that's not all. During our study, we found specimens thought to represent a known species, Platygalli ingrami, in the Kimberley region of Western Australia. Were genetically distinct from these in the Northern Territory, Queensland, and South Australia, even though they looked very similar. This genetic information indicated these specimens were a cryptic species, something that can be identified by genetics but is difficult to tell apart based on appearance alone. By consulting historical research papers, we found these Kimberley platygallis were in fact already described more than 100 years ago from a specimen, collected in Australia that ended up in Sweden. Oh, so, with help from curators at the Swedish Museum of Natural History, we were able to confirm this old specimen matched the new ones from the Western Australian Museum. We have called this the Kimberley Platygalli subtilissima, as most of its range occurs in the Kimberley. Unlike the Arnhem Plateau Platygalli, Kimberley platygallis have been detected frequently by Australian Wildlife Conservancy and partners on recent surveys, so there's less concern for their future. Yeah, I would still care about that little dude, considering, um,
Hold on,
I
let me
mean,
blow
just
him
when
up.
when it comes to the smaller marsupials in general,
That's what he actually looks like.
yeah, it just always seems they're extremely under threat by feral foxes, feral dogs, cats. I'll stick the wildfires into that. Who else? I could possibly even stick in like cane toads, certain exotic species of invasive lizards. Thinking maybe even certain. Oh, I was going to say rats, mice, their competition, and a threat when it comes to also different diseases. So no, they're all on our in our minds. Let's see. Um, our work has so far added four new species of platygallis to Australia, as we had previously identified the orange-headed Pilbara platygalli and the cracking clay Pilbara platygalli. Yeah, I guess I haven't really heard of these specific new platygallis. There's platygallis alone, I think over 30 different species.
I've heard that name more in this article than I've heard with everything I've ever listened to you from.
Yeah, I think I mentioned them before, but that was way back. This has increased the diversity of this group of tiny mammals in Australia to 8 species in total. Wonder how recently this occurred, with an extra one known in Papua New Guinea. Makes you wonder how many more platygallis and other mammals are out there waiting to be recognized. Well, definitely Papua New Guinea probably has more, but who knows? Australia might too. Okay, well, this was really interesting to hear. Apparently, a century beforehand, it was already described. It was just, I guess, certain specimens were sent to the Swedish Museum of Natural History, and then luckily they found them. Okay, let's head back into the Mesozoic era. So from Sci News, meet Guemesia ochwai, new abelisaurid dinosaur from Argentina. A new genus and species of abelisaurid theropod has been identified from a partially complete skull found in northwest Argentina. Yeah, I think this is just simply a Carnotaurus. I don't think this is the new species. It's a very Carnotaurus sort of a morphology. I mean, you're looking at the skull structure, or like as well as like the horns. They're very different from a wide range of different species of abelisaurs. When it comes to abelisaurs in general, they're most common over in South America. There haven't been any species that have been discovered over in North America. Australia, there's one possibly that might have been discovered called Ozraptor, but it's still very up or very much for debate. It has a lot of different morphological features that different species of abelisaurs contain as well. But setting aside Australia, we've not found any species coming in from Antarctica. I have seen certain things try to mention that Cryolophosaurus was an abelisaurid. It is not. It's simply an early species of um, uh, Tetanarian theropod from the early Jurassic, like around 190 million years ago. It's not until you reach like places such as Europe where we have probably around four different species. All the species that we have discovered there, including a species of Tarascosaurus, seem to be containing very abelisaurid morphological characteristics. Asia, we have found maybe three species. There could be a fourth, but it's heavily debated with another species of Tarascosaurus. Africa also has four, including Madagascar, because Madagascar is part of Africa. The newly identified dino species lived approximately 70 million years ago during the early Cretaceous epoch. Scientifically named Guamesia ochwai, the ancient beast was a type of abelisaurid. The fossil record of abelisaurid theropods in South America is mostly limited to Brazil and Argentina, said lead author Dr. Federico
His daughter?
Agnolin,
His daughter?
paleontologist at the Museo Argentino de Ciencias Naturales Ben Bernardino Rivadavia and Condorcet and his colleagues. Um, yeah, South America, especially Argentina, different parts of Brazil, especially southern Brazil, are a haven for different species, and not just abelisaurs, but different species of megaraptorids. You could technically say members of the Ceratosaurian lineage of dinosaurs, which would consist of Abelisauroideae, which basically dates back to somewhere around 190 to 199 million years ago, along with the beginning of the Ceratosaurian lineages or lineage, which would consist of Ceratosaurs too. Another group of theropods as well. Just not hitting me at the moment. And as well as different species of sauropods come from South America as well. So in Argentina, belisaurids are generally known from Patagonia, where their record is relatively abundant and includes well-known and complete specimens. Carnotaurus is from South America. You have it where a Belisaurus is from here as well. But you also find different species of Spinosaurs that occurred here too. I don't know if it's it say 70 million years ago, I think, for this species. Yep. Okay. This is after the Spinosaurs went extinct. However, for northwestern Argentina, abelisaurids are represented by incomplete and isolated bones and teeth that remain largely unpublished. The paleontologists found a nearly complete brain case, including the upper and back parts of the skull of Guamesia oaktwi and reddish sandy siltstones of the Los Blanquitos formation that crop out in the south part of the Amblio Valley, close to Amblio town in Argentina's Salta province. Okay, so we need to bring up a very large animal. So specifically a species of sauropod, Patagotitan. So Patagotitan. So, before I mentioned that this animal was an invalid genus. It is not. There have actually been several different papers when it comes to the morphological characteristics of this animal, showing that it is its own distinct genus of sauropod or species. And so it is very closely related to the Argentinosaurus, but it seems to be a bit of a predecessor to Argentinosaurus. It actually lived a bit earlier in the Cretaceous, around 101 million years ago. Argentinosaurus, being the largest species of dinosaur that we have discovered, was roaming Argentina, Brazil, possibly Chile, somewhere around 98 million years ago, possibly a bit later too, into the Cretaceous. So, Patagotitan could still likely reach a length of probably 102 feet or pushing 31 meters and probably weighed somewhere around 62 tons, making it one of the larger species of sauropod.
R7 Play said, "Not surprised if Mape and Carnotaurus have fought."
Oh, I bet, they did occasionally, and I think it would be Mape, if it's a large, full-grown Mape that had the upper hand. I mean, yes, you could say Carnotaurus has a much more, um, robust jaw structure, but Mape is not exactly it doesn't exactly have a brittle skull, but it also has its massive forelimbs, so it's basically the Spinosaurs, and then you have the Megaraptors when it comes to their massive forelimbs. And obviously, there's nothing really Carnotaurus can do with its small hands, or arms in general. But yeah, very likely the animals came into contact with each other. It would be pretty exciting if we found evidence of Carnotaurus or Mape having bite marks or slash marks from one another. Um, they were probably both feeding on different species of saltosaurs or smaller sauropods in the region. Um, Probably even certain medium-sized species as well. So this is supposed to be a Patagotitan. Um, hmm. The problem with this instance is that the tail is a bit off. That's almost a tail structure you would see in certain older sauropod depictions, especially like when looking at members of the brachiosaur lineage of sauropods, which um, were still existing and around the time of Patagotitan, but they had massively decreased in variety. Patagotitan, this animal, it's very likely that it might have roamed in smaller herds, so still maybe consisting of 20 to 30 individuals. But this is giving it more of like this specific picture here of a also an earlier brontosaur or diplodocid sort of stature. It's very likely that this animal would have held its neck or even head far off of the ground. So, possibly reaching a height of somewhere around 35 to 40 feet, maybe even slightly taller. I think to an extent, at least when it comes to the neck structure, this is a better depiction. Titanosaurs had rather, depending on the group, this is not a member of Lithostrodia. Well, I'll finish my statement. They had quite robust neck structures.
I think it's the same one.
Yeah, it just seems to be in different background. I think it looks good. Now they are giving it quite like I'm not sure if they're supposed to be somewhat just rectangularish or ovalish osteoderms towards the upper part of the back as well as like the upper caudal vertebrae or the upper part of the tail. Also the bottom part of the neck as well. It's certainly possible that Patagotitan and other larger species of titanosaurs had this type of a somewhat armored structure. I don't think, at least for Patagotitan, we have evidence for this. But Patagotitan is a member of the Luncosauridae lineage of titanosaurs. So was Argentinosaurus. I think in
Did you
more
say Luncosaurian?
Luncosauridae. Yep.
Sounds like they're just big fat things.
They kind of were to an extent, really just due to the wide rib cage in which you would have had a wide variety of different microbes helping digest all of that plant material. But They weren't necessarily fat. You might have had certain species of dinosaurs a bit earlier into the Cretaceous as well as a bit later, because we're at a bit of a warming event at the moment. At this part of the middle Cretaceous, that might have contained fat because you had certain dinosaurs living in cooler environments. Argentinosaurus, Patagotitan probably did not, as well as other larger species of titanosaurs.
That neck looks fat.
Yeah, I think it's just a wide range of muscle. It just has that sort of an appearance. Um, well, let's see. What's another thing? Yes, this animal could likely rear up on its hind legs to reach even higher into the conifers. The shocking thing, however, when it comes to this animal, some might not find it too shocking. I still think it is. It might have had a top pace of 5 miles per hour. We're pushing around 8 kilometers per hour or so. It was fairly slow, but we are talking about an animal that weighs some around 62 tons. Now, I could be mixing that up for Argentinosaurus, but I'll double check on that speed. Though, if it was any faster, I'm guessing 8 to 10 miles per hour would probably be pushing it for that animal as well, or somewhere around 11 kilometers per hour. Now, it doesn't really have to run from anything. Putting aside, an earthquake, a tsunami, when it comes to like other members of its own kind or the larger theropods, that's really all it's having to worry about, and it can't outrun the carcharodontosaurs that hunt it. Bellysaurs are not going after this animal unless they're hunting like its hatchlings or small juveniles. So there's not really a need for running. Now, the brain, I will look into specifically if we have an estimate for the weight of the brain of this animal. I don't think, however, Patagotitan, is that still the picture? Oh, has the largest brain or even Argentinosaurus for sauropods. It seems to be that title belongs to a brachiosaur called Giraffatitan. Um, Giraffatitan, it seems, probably had a brain that weighed somewhere around 300 grams, which is pushing the size of. I'm trying to think of a mammal today that has that size of a brain. Um, a s- who would it be? I swear a lion pushes that size, somewhere between 3 to 400 grams. Polar bear is somewhere around 480 grams, which is smaller than like the Kodiak brown bear, which is interesting. That can range between 4 to 600 grams. Same thing for like a moose. Moose have brains that are about 4 to 600 grams in weight. Now you're wondering, okay, well, Giraffe Titan has the largest or the heaviest brain, so it's probably extremely smart. Um, it probably was smarter compared to most other sauropods. Now, maybe for the Jurassic, I wouldn't assume so for later species, considering you would assume that for the extended evolution period that they had, they would be slightly smarter. But it seems to be when it comes to most species of sauropods, their brain is really focusing on balance and just managing their overall um, different muscle anatomy in general. So when it comes to the thinking, it didn't increase too much. Really didn't need to either. They were pretty much all doing the same thing. Slightly different environments, but just feeding on different species of conifers, migrating, defending themselves against other larger predators. Okay, where were we? Back to this Abelisaur. The specimen had, oh wait, yeah. The specimen had typical Abelisaur features: a thin skull roof, um, so specifically like the top of the skull, which it is interesting. It definitely doesn't seem to be as robust as certain other lineages of the theropod family of dinosaurs. Absence of skull projections like horns or bulges. Okay, so it does not have that distinct morphology of the Carnotaurus, which is well known for, at least for those that are familiar with Carnotaurus, the picture up top. Um, Specifically for its horn-like structure. You could say a wide variety of different species of carnivorous dinosaurs like Allosaurus, Who else? You could say T Rex or even Albertosaurus to a smaller extent. They do have a horn like structure above their eyes. It's just not to the extent of Carnotaurus. Other dinosaurs like Dilophosaurus, Cryolophosaurus back in the early Jurassics around 190 to 195 million years ago, their structure was more of like a distinct type of a crest. It wasn't really a horn. So let's head down. It's very possible that Carnotaurus might have been able to engage in combat with its horns. So, and low and narrow parietal eminence at the same level as the sagittal crest. It shows a unique combination of characters, including striking plesiomorphic features for an sword, such as dorsoventrally thin frontal bones and a narrow and relatively low parietal eminence. It also has a unique set of internal cavities within the frontals that communicate with the dorsal surface, perhaps implying a pneumatic and vascular origin. Further, as inferred from preserved elements, Guamesia oquai is a relatively small taxon, much smaller than derived abelisaurs such as Abelisaurus and Carnotaurus. Yeah, Abelisaurus and Carnotaurus, I think Abelisaurus was slightly shorter in length, but I think it was like around the same weight, if not slightly heavier compared to Carnotaurus. It was a bit more heavily built. But Carnotaurus was somewhere around 22, 25 feet in length. They're pushing around 6.8 to 7.7, 7.8 meters, probably weighing around 2.5 tons. So what are we looking at here? I think this is part of this, yeah, brain case. I'm
Okay.
guessing that the belly sores in some cases, what?
I just went, okay.
Um, were probably slightly smarter than the Carcharodontosaurs, but that can be up for a major debate depending on the species. What is interesting is that we're towards the last 4 million years of the Cretaceous with this animal, and it's a smaller species. Was the area that it inhabited in South America, like, was it more of like an island based ecosystem? Also, at this time, you had it where the dinosaurs in South America weren't necessarily anywhere as large as their counterparts back in the early late Cretaceous. So during the late Cretaceous epoch, South America was divided into northeastern and southwestern realms by a sea corridor, which acted as a filter for some vertebrates. The strong morphological differences exhibited by Guamesia ochoai, in contrast to other belisaurid dinosaurs, may be an additional proof of the biogeographic distinctiveness of northwestern Argentina during the late Cretaceous. So it does seem to be that a lot, or the geography itself, is having a major impact on this specific species. Guamesia ochoai is quite unusual for its kind, said co-author Professor Nhalai Goswami, a paleontologist at the Natural History Museum, London. Oh, okay. Um, it has several key characteristics that suggest that it is a new species, providing important new information about an area of the world which we don't know a lot about. We know a decent amount of the, or about certain species of dinosaurs coming in from South America. Um, and it can be back in the Jurassic period, the Triassic, like with different species of earlier prosauropods, different species of Herrerasaurs, all the way through the Jurassic, and then especially the Cretaceous, a haven for South American dinosaurs. So let's see. So it shows that the dinosaurs that live in this region were quite different from those in other parts of Argentina, supporting the idea of distinct provinces in the Cretaceous of South America. Well, okay. I'm guessing what it's referring to is specifically maybe certain other dinosaurs from this specific part of the Cretaceous being the earlier Maastrichtian stage, or possibly smaller, and seems to be different characteristics when it comes to especially their skull structure. This animal's probably possibly coexisted with earlier predecessors to Carnotaurus. This is likely not the ancestor to it, because it's a that would be a huge jump in size for that period of time. Now, it's always possible, but it seems to be where like massive increases or massive differences in size occur tends to be like going from a larger animal to a smaller animal. And that does not take very long. It can take just a handful of thousand years. Um, so I was thinking maybe like larger sauropods, smaller sauropods, or in this case, larger to smaller belly swords. So it also shows us there is a lot more to be discovered in these areas that get less attention than some of the more famous fossil sites. Yeah, it's probably referring to certain regions, not including like the larger late Cretaceous dinosaurs come from, like Patagotitan, Argentinosaurus, but it's probably where we see Mape, the large Megaraptor, and Carnotaurus, as well as like the Saltosaurus sauropods. Okay, well, that's it. Thanks for joining. And from prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guy Live Daily News. Happy International Triceratops Day. And remember that nothing is better than all animals all the time. And yeah, I'll stick in a Triceratops hortus. Maybe I should stick in horses too. Um, yeah, you know what? No, hortus, because it's about hortus. It wasn't a Triceratops horsus specimen. So let's do that. Alberta. We'll get to that. So Triceratops hortus day. Woo. Um,